welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And I'm just going to leave that in because today is a very special episode. And not only is it the 20th of March, which you'll find out why the 20th of March is so significant in this episode. But the reason why I'm bringing my guest on today from the Lisa Cullen Garcia Foundation, to those of you who listened to interview number 1 with Todd Crawford of the Lisa Cullen Garcia Foundation, you know that his wife got diagnosed with a brain aneurysm. His wife, Lisa, was a very famous reporter on a New York news station. And the reason why I can't make it through Todd's intro is I'll admit to you guys that this is the same disease that my own mom went into the hospital with. And it will be 7 years in August. And Todd and I were just talking about how the build-up to these events is more painful than the actual event, because Todd now has 2 young kids. I am I will be 30 years old, and yet the doctors are not diagnosing brain aneurysm as quickly as they should, and then people come home and die 24 hours after. So without further ado, pull out the Kleenex boxes. Todd and I are going to have a fairly serious conversation about this. So without further ado, I'm going to let Todd take it away.
Hi, Wynn.
Well, it's very nice to have you on once again, Todd. And let's just take it easy on you, because as I mentioned in your intro, which I could barely get through, today's the day of Lisa's passing. So explain to my audience in layman's terms what a brain aneurysm is, and I'll fill in the gaps as to what I know, what my personal experience was with this disease.
Yeah, I think your setup was great. The one, correction that I have to make is that Lisa was never diagnosed with a brain aneurysm, which is why today marks the 2-year anniversary of her death. And a brain aneurysm is a weakening of one of the walls of a blood vessel in the brain that, through time and as a result of the constant pounding and flow of blood against that weakening wall, if you think of a blood vessel as a spaghetti noodle or straw, the weakening wall eventually balloons outward and inflates, almost like a car tire or bike tire does, with too much pressure in it, to the point where, the vessel is susceptible to rupture. And once a rupture occurs, you're talking about something that it's basically over for anybody who, or for the vast majority of people who experience a rupture, because once blood spills into the brain where it should not be, the brain controls every other organ and bodily function, and the brain begins to shut down immediately, and from all the pressure, and the cells in the brain begin to die instantly. So, this is something that affects as many as potentially 15 million Americans. Women are 50% more likely, at least, to develop a brain aneurysm than men. That means that there are as many, or up to as many as 9 million women out there who are walking around with a brain aneurysm and may not know it. African Americans are 30% more likely to develop a brain aneurysm than other groups.
Jesus. Okay. So people may not know this disease, and certainly my family didn't know it. Certainly your family didn't know it. So what are we supposed to do?
Well, the reason that that you and I did not know is because nobody, frankly, over the last 40 plus years has been doing the life-saving work in creating awareness and education until the Lisa Colagrassi Foundation came along.
Yeah.
If somebody had been out there doing the work that we are doing today 2 years ago, there's a good chance that Lisa would still be with us, although maybe not the same person and maybe not able to resume, her duties as a very skilled and, very popular television journalist for ABC News, anchor reporter, but would probably be working with the foundation right alongside me to further this cause and prevent other ruptures and educate others about the signs, symptoms, and risk factors for brain aneurysm. So we had no idea what to look for because nobody was out there doing the work that we're doing.
No one was out there doing the work in 2010 either when my mom was diagnosed. They originally, and I'll admit this publicly, they originally diagnosed her with the flu and gave her a bag of IV fluids and sent her home. And that was in a local hospital in Aspen, Colorado. And they don't.
And in your mom's case, she had flu-like symptoms. In Lisa's case, Lisa was walking around for a period of about 5 or 6 weeks with 2 of the classic warning signs. We had no idea what to look for. We just her in Lisa's case, her signs were worst headache of life, which is the number one and most common symptom. It is a headache that is very unusual and unlike any other that anybody has ever experienced. It feels like your head is literally going to explode, and it's a headache that is a sudden onset, just comes out of nowhere. You may be fine 1 second, and the next second, it is the most paralyzing headache you've ever felt. And the other symptom that Lisa experienced was sudden onset of sensitivity to light, even to the point where she was walking in the house, at times with sunglasses on because she just couldn't take the sensitivity to the lights in the house. But there are other symptoms, vomiting and nausea, stiffness of neck, sudden sharp pain above or behind, one of your eyes. Those are the most common symptoms. But if everybody, your viewing audience would like to find out more, they can visit, tlcfound.org, and we have a laundry list of the other signs and symptoms that people commonly experience who have a brain aneurysm.
Yeah, but if my audience has a family member or friend who's experiencing one of those signs, 1, call 911 immediately. 2, I don't even know, how do we get the risk factors down? I mean, I don't even know, because when you send people to the ER, as I said, doctors will say it's the flu, it's whatever, and then they won't diagnose it.
So I think, one of the keys is that, doctors are trained to listen for certain words in the ER, and if somebody walks in, for example, and is experiencing worst headache of life, if they were to say, I never get headaches, I have the absolute worst headache of my life, chances are that they will automatically be bumped up on the wait list and rushed into an imaging, for imaging and scanning. And the two ways of scanning that really are the most bulletproof in terms of detecting and diagnosing a brain aneurysm are CT angiogram and an MRA, not an MRI, an MRA. Both CT angiogram and MRA involve the use of a dye or contrast so that the blood vessels in the brain can be seen much more visibly than other scanning techniques.
But so if you don't ask for MRA and they give you an MRI, that won't help, will it?
Well, an MRA does sometimes detect a brain aneurysm, but it is an MRA that is really the preferred method of imaging of the two because of the use of contrast. MRI does not use contrast, and so therefore it's in some cases essential that contrast be used because an MRI may not be able to clearly pick up the outline of a blood vessel in the brain and the ballooning of the outward ballooning of the blood vessel, which is that weakening wall. And that's the one thing you don't want to overlook, because if that's overlooked and the weakening of that blood vessel wall continues, it could be just a matter of, a day or two or more before that wall of the blood vessel gives way to a rupture. And it's ruptures that we're trying to prevent. You mentioned risk factors before. The four top risk factors for brain aneurysm are tobacco use, any kind of tobacco use, so smoking, tobacco use in general, hypertension, drug, alcohol abuse. So if you're somebody who is a smoker or uses any kind of tobacco, or if you have, high blood pressure that runs in your family, you need to, heed, and do something, change your lifestyle immediately.
Yes. So and doesn't family history have something to do with it too?
There is a familial link. There has not been enough conclusive research done to emphatically, state, whether one person in your family or two people in your family, have a brain before you need to get checked. So there's a lot more work than research that needs to be done in that regard.
And if a family member, i.e., had a brain aneurysm, what is the next of kin supposed to do? What is the next of kin supposed to do? Because doctors are not trained to automatically spot a brain aneurysm without an MRA.
Yeah, and that's one of those areas, again, where there really hasn't been a definitive consensus formed in many years. But if you ask, and we have the Medical Advisory Board of the Lisa Calagrassi Foundation, they'll tell you that if even one person in your family has been diagnosed with a brain aneurysm, that other family members, children, blood relatives of that person should be checked and screened for a brain aneurysm. And children, once they reach the age of 18 years of age, should begin to have regular screenings once every 5 years.
Oh, boy. So, okay. So my next question is, how does a next of kin request a screen for a brain aneurysm? I.e., me. Thank you very much. And the reason why I say that is because part of my CP is a brain bleed, so I just have to be super careful now as to what I am doing and as to what I'm experiencing, because as I said, my mom went into the hospital with a brain aneurysm. So give me the typical, what do I tell my doctor?
Well, you can go in and get one. You can request one, and they'll give you one. It's a matter of, in many cases, who's going to pay for it. And in some cases, you may need to come out of pocket and pay for it yourself. And, for example, in Lisa's case, after her passing 2 years ago, within a month, both of her brother and sister went to their general physician and had the discussion and, shared with the physician what happened to Lisa, and they said, we'd like to get screened. And, they both did, and they both had to come out of pocket and pay roughly $3,000 for the screening. Their test came back negative, but that's something that they may want to go back, in a couple of years to get screened again. So there needs to be, I think, an education process in this country for sure that hasn't happened, and a dialogue needs to be developed with insurance companies. I mean, there has been really about screening procedures and, who and when, and where do you start, and we're getting into, all of that, just like, women are screened today, and it's covered, breast cancer screenings are covered by insurance companies. And, so we need to get to a point, because you're dealing with the most sensitive part of the body, the brain, where, people can, be covered for, for screenings for brain aneurysms as well. But there has been a real lack of leadership and vision and know-how, in this industry over the last, 40 plus years. And I mean, it's really been a vacuum. And so, that's the reason that the Lisa Calagrassi Foundation was formed and launched 16 months ago this month. And, we have been featured on a number of national media programs, the Dr. Oz Show, Good Morning America, Fox and Friends, so on, many others. And have, as a result of those appearances, been credited with saving the lives of several people from around the world who, saw or heard one of the appearances we made, and, us sharing our story about Lisa and the signs and symptoms and risk factors. They were actually experiencing one of the classic warning signs, went and heeded our warning to seek emergency, medical attention, were diagnosed and successfully treated. That's what it's all about. Those families are still intact today. They have their mom or dad or sister, and their children, have their parents as a result of our efforts. So we've been credited with saving more lives, just in our short 16 months than anyone else in the world. And we've barely scratched the surface. I could promise you that. Our efforts are just beginning, and people around the country are going to be hearing from us in a much bigger way later this year.
Exactly. And I will stand right behind you guys. I may do it in a little bit of a secret way, but I will stand right behind you guys, because if I knew what I know now, 7 years later, I would still have a mom.
Right.
I would still have a mom. Now, granted, she went into the hospital with a brain aneurysm and went and got meningitis because they fixed the brain aneurysm. They did brain aneurysm surgery, but a bunch of hockey players came in with meningitis and gave it to, I believe, 11 families on the lawn. And so my question to you, Todd, is as people are recovering from brain aneurysm surgery, is there a risk factor for any other diseases coming in its body?
That's a good question, Wynn. I'm not the best person to ask, on that, because you're now entering into another area, and that really needs to come from somebody who has the acumen and skill set. I mean, you need to be speaking to somebody, a medical professional, to give a definitive answer about that, because that's really not brain aneurysm specific.
Related, okay.
Yeah, and so I hesitate to even weigh in on that, because it's just not my field of expertise.
But I will tell you that the brain aneurysm surgery did save my mom's life. It was the meningitis that took it out. Now, granted, if she didn't get meningitis, I would still have a mom. But brain aneurysm, watching a person go through the symptoms of a brain aneurysm is the most scary thing ever. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do.
There are two forms of treatment, and so your audience is probably, we've talked about what a brain aneurysm is. We've talked about the warning signs and the risk factors, but they're probably saying, okay, and we've talked about how to diagnose a brain aneurysm, but what about treatment? Well, you can be successfully treated. A brain aneurysm is not an automatic death sentence. There are two forms of treatment depending on a number of factors and criteria. The shape and condition of the aneurysm itself, one's overall health, and a number of other factors that medical professionals take into consideration. But the first form of treatment is a craniotomy, which is basically open brain surgery, very invasive.
Yeah.
The less preferred method of the two. The recovery is a lot longer and generally brings about a lot more recovery issues and susceptibilities to neurological deficits as a result. The much preferred method of treatment is endovascular treatment, where they go in with a catheter through the groin up into the brain and feed a combination of stents and or coils up through that catheter and into and surrounding the aneurysm itself to block off the flow of blood into that aneurysm, which is, again, into the weakening wall. That is obviously the much preferred method of treatment and greatly reduces your risk of neurological deficits and reduces your recovery time and a whole host of other issues. So, those are the two forms of treating a brain aneurysm.
Okay, so now I honestly think my mom had the number one you mentioned, because
craniotomy.
Craniotomy, because she had the largest incision I have ever seen in my life. And I have a lot of incisions
Not pretty.
on.
Not pretty.
But it's not pretty. And so craniotomy she had, and and it's like we were dealing with a whole host of issues, as I said, after. So, but the craniotomy did save her life. I wish she just got it sooner than, or I wish she got option B now than she got option A, but because of the time it took and because of the time it took and because of everything that went on up here, I don't think they could have done option B. I think they had to go.
Well, and that's and you don't know. I mean, that's the thing, and that's why time is of the essence. And the key to everything, to option B, meaning endovascular treatment versus craniotomy, open brain surgery, is early diagnosis and detection, as early as you can possibly identify that somebody has a brain aneurysm. And because then the doctor's treatment options expand, in terms of endovascular treatment. The further along the brain aneurysm develops and enlarges, and to the point where it starts to, a sentinel bleed is a slow leak that then the brain, the aneurysm heals itself, and then it leaks again, and then it just, increases the odds that and chances that a craniotomy is going to have to be performed to treat it successfully, where they go in and they actually leave a clip in your head. That's how they clip it off, and, they close you back up and, put the skull back in place, and you're left with a huge scar and stitches and no hair, and it's not pretty. It is a very invasive, procedure for treating a brain aneurysm. There's no sugarcoating it.
It's definitely not pretty, and I have seen personally the aftermath of that, and it's definitely not pretty. And Todd, I want to thank you for sharing your knowledge once again on Lisa's anniversary. And where can people find you? And this is going to turn into Wynn's begathon if she's not careful, because I want all my fans to, those of you who watch ABC News and those of you who know Lisa, to help Todd out, because I'm going to tell you something. This is a self-funded foundation, thank you very much, and Todd and I and all the rest of the families who have been affected by brain aneurysms are trying to save lives there. So every donation helps. Where can people find you? How can they donate? What do you want my audience to do, Todd?
It has been self-funded so far, but we're in the process, I hope and believe in changing that. And as of today, 100% of a person's donation goes directly to life-saving awareness and education programs, and they can find out more about us at lisafoundation.org.
Yep.
www.lisafoundation.org.
And please, 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 please donate, because if my mom was saved by the craniotomy, I would still have a mom. Lisa would still be here, and we're talking about two remarkable women here. I mean, I have seen videos of Lisa. Lisa was, or as strong as my mom, and so we're talking about two remarkable women who are now watching over our work, and they are proud of the work that Todd and I are doing. But still, it's very painful. It's very painful for me and Todd to be sitting there and talking about brain aneurysm. So brain aneurysm awareness, I never thought at 30 years old, 29, I would be in this position of taking on a huge disability. And here I thought CP was huge. No, brain aneurysms are bigger than CP, and I never thought we would be having this conversation, but yet we are. So please, you guys, help the Lisa Colin-Gossi Foundation out, put in honor of Wynn, and say to Todd, you heard this TSA on Butterflies of Wisdom, and we'll try to carry on the work that Lisa and my mom left us to do.
That's great, Wynn. Appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much.
You are welcome, Todd, and I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed Todd explaining the rough realities of what I had to go through, and I hope we can save lives in the process of doing the work we're doing. And as I said, I appreciate Todd coming on and sharing his great work. And as I said, it's March 20th, and let's keep this work going and save more lives.
Will do. Will do. God bless, Wynn.